The silent weapon. The Grand Arbiter Velox stood motionless before the vast observation window of the Galactic Council's flagship, the Eternal Dominion. His 7-foot frame cast a long shadow across the polished obsidian floor as he studied the blue-green planet rotating slowly before him. Earth, so small, so insignificant in the grand design of the cosmos, yet somehow troublesome. "Status report," Velox commanded, his voice barely above a whisper but carrying with the weight of authority that had subjugated 1,000 worlds. Supreme Tactician Ixora approached, her translucent skin glowing with bioluminescent data patterns. "The humans remain defiant, Grand Arbiter. Despite our blockade, they've refused our terms for the 3rd time." "Curious," Velox replied, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. The analysis indicated they would capitulate within 7 cycles. Their civilization barely qualifies as Class 3. Their technology is primitive, their political structures fragmented. What gives them such confidence? The question hung in the air unanswered. For 3 standard cycles, the Galactic Council's diplomatic corps had attempted to integrate Earth into their hegemony. The terms were, by Council standards, generous. Surrender all military assets, accept Council governance, contribute a reasonable 30% of global resources to the collective, and provide a modest conscription quota of 10% of their population for service throughout Council space. Yet the humans had not only refused, but had done so with what Ixora described as inappropriate humor. "Prepare a demonstration," Velox finally said. "Nothing excessive. Target their moon base. Minimal casualties, maximum visual impact." "As you command," Ixora replied with a formal gesture of obedience. Within hours, the Council's demonstration force positioned itself near Earth's moon. 3 light cruisers, each carrying enough firepower to level a small continent, moved into formation. On Earth, billions watched as the alien vessels approached the small research outpost on the lunar surface, where 200 scientists and engineers worked. In the United Earth Defense Headquarters beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Maya Chen watched with her staff as the feed from lunar cameras showed the approaching Council ships. "They're making a statement," she said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "Testing our resolve." "We should evacuate the moon base," her deputy suggested. Chen shook her head. "Too late, but our people knew the risks." She turned to a tall man standing quietly in the corner of the command center. "Dr. Ashford, is Project Whisper ready?" The scientist stepped forward, his eyes never leaving the main screen. "It's untested at this range, General. We've only confirmed effectiveness at orbital distances." "It's time to find out if your theory holds at greater distances," Chen replied. Ashford nodded and moved to a secure terminal, entering a complex sequence of commands. Around the world, hidden installations powered up, generating invisible fields that extended outward from Earth. On the Eternal Dominion, Velox received the live feed from the demonstration. The light cruisers had taken position around the human moon base and charged their primary weapons. The command to fire had been given, yet something was wrong. "Status report," Velox demanded. "The cruisers report weapons malfunction," Ixora replied, confusion evident in her voice. "All 3 vessels simultaneously." "Impossible," Velox hissed. "Run diagnostics." Before diagnostics could be completed, new alarms sounded. The cruisers were reporting propulsion failures, life support irregularities, and cascading systems shutdowns. Within minutes, all 3 vessels were adrift, their crews working desperately to restore power. "What is happening?" Velox demanded, his composed demeanor cracking slightly. On Earth, Chen watched with carefully controlled satisfaction as the Council ships drifted helplessly in lunar orbit. "Dr. Ashford, I believe you've just saved 200 lives and proven your theory." Ashford allowed himself a small smile. "Project Whisper works by disrupting quantum fields that their technology depends on. It's like introducing static into a clean signal. Their systems can't maintain coherence, and they can't detect it. That's the beauty," Ashford replied. It doesn't register on any known sensors. It's not an attack in any traditional sense. We're simply changing the local physics slightly. Chen turned to her communications officer. Send word to the resistance cells on Mars and the Jupiter colonies. Operation Ghostwalker is a go. Across the solar system, humans who had been preparing for this moment sprang into action. Small, stealthy craft approached the disabled Council cruisers. While the alien crews focused on restoring their systems, human boarding parties breached their hulls. The fighting was brief but intense, and within 2 hours, all 3 Council vessels were under human control. On the Eternal Dominion, Vilox faced the Tactical Council, a group of the most brilliant military minds in the galaxy. The mood was somber. 3 light cruisers captured by primitives, High Commander Zeth stated, his exoskeleton clicking with agitation. This is unprecedented in Council history. Their tactics defy analysis, Ixoret admitted. Our vessels reported no incoming weapons, no electronic warfare signatures, no detectable attack at all. Systems simply failed. Could it be coincidence, a natural phenomenon? Asked another counselor. The probability of simultaneous failure across all systems on 3 separate vessels is effectively 0, Ixoret replied. This was deliberate action by the humans. Velox considered this information carefully. What do we know of their scientific capabilities? They are advanced in theoretical physics, Ixoret said. Our initial assessment perhaps underestimated their understanding of quantum mechanics and field theory. However, they lack the technological infrastructure to implement advanced applications. Evidently not, Velox said dryly. Prepare the second wave. Full combat deployment. No more demonstrations. 3 days later, a Council battle group entered the solar system. 50 warships organized in precise formation, each one carrying ground forces and enough firepower to reduce Earth's cities to ash. Humanity watched as the invasion force approached, fear mixing with determination. In her command center, Chen issued final orders to Earth's defenders. Remember, conventional weapons will have minimal effect. Focus on deploying whisper nodes in their path. Let them come to us. As the Council fleet approached Earth, they detected no significant defense systems, no orbital platforms, nothing that could challenge their supremacy. Their sensors showed only scattered satellites and small defensive vessels attempting to organize a perimeter. Pathetic, High Commander Zeth commented from the lead battleship. Begin the attack sequence. Target their military installations first, then governmental centers. The Council warships moved into optimal firing positions and activated their weapon systems. And then, just as happened near the moon, systems began failing. Not all at once this time. The Council engineers had implemented redundancies and safeguards after the first incident. But one by one, ships reported malfunctions, power fluctuations, and weapons failures. It's happening again, Zeth growled. But how? We detect no energy signatures, no attack vectors. Unlike the demonstration force, this battle group had prepared contingencies. Ships with failing systems were protected by those still operational. The formation tightened, becoming a defensive sphere. Council engineers worked frantically to restore functionality, occasionally succeeding only to have systems fail again minutes later. Launch ground forces, Zeth ordered. If we cannot bombard from orbit, we will secure key positions and establish ground-based platforms. Thousands of troop carriers descended toward Earth's surface, targeting major cities and strategic locations. Human defenders waited, whisper nodes positioned to create safe corridors where Council technology would function normally, guiding the invaders exactly where humanity wanted them. In New York, Council dropships landed in Central Park, disgorging hundreds of troops in powered armor. They formed up efficiently, weapons ready, only to find their targeting systems offline and power armor reduced to dead weight. Human resistance fighters emerged from underground tunnels and surrounding buildings, using simple projectile weapons against the suddenly vulnerable invaders. Similar scenes played out globally. Council forces found themselves stripped of their technological advantages, fighting against humans who had prepared for this moment with meticulous care. What should have been a swift subjugation became a grueling ground war against an enemy who seemed to appear and disappear at will. On the Eternal Dominion, Vilox received increasingly disturbing reports from the front lines. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "How can primitives neutralize our technology so completely?" The answer came unexpectedly. A Council science vessel, maintaining distance from the battle, reported an anomalous reading. Subtle fluctuations in the quantum field permeating the space around Earth, so subtle they had been dismissed as background noise, until someone fought to correlate them with system failures. "They've weaponized physics itself," the chief scientist reported. "They're locally altering quantum field stability, creating zones where advanced technology cannot maintain coherence." "Is there a countermeasure?" Vilox asked. "We're developing one, but it will require fundamental redesign of our systems." Vilox stood silently, processing this information. For the first time in his long life, he felt something approaching respect for a lesser species. These humans had found a way to level the playing field against a vastly superior force. Instead of trying to match Council technology, they had simply changed the rules of engagement. "Issue a tactical withdrawal," he finally ordered. "All forces to regroup at the heliopause. We need time to adapt." As Council forces retreated from Earth, humans celebrated their first victory. But General Chen and the defense leadership knew this was just the beginning. "They'll be back," Chen told her commanders. "And next time, they'll be prepared for Whisper." Dr. Ashford nodded in agreement. "Whisper gave us the advantage of surprise, but the effect has limitations. We need to use this time wisely." "How long until they develop countermeasures?" Chen asked. "Based on what we've learned from captured Council technology, perhaps 3 months," Ashford replied. "We need to advance to Phase 2 immediately." Chen turned to her staff. "Begin Operation Starbridge. It's time to take the fight to them." As the Council forces regrouped at the edge of the solar system, humanity prepared for the next phase of the war. The captured Council ships were studied intensively, yielding technological insights that would have taken decades to develop otherwise. But more importantly, they provided the means for humanity's most audacious plan: to reach out to other species who had fallen under Council dominion. Earth had won the first battle, but the war for galactic freedom had only just begun. The Unbreakable Alliance. 3 months after the Council's failed attempt to subjugate Earth, Grand Arbiter Vilox stood before the 7 Pillars, the governing body of the Galactic Council itself. The vast chamber, carved from a single asteroid and lined with luminescent crystals, hummed with tension as representatives from the 17 founding species waited for his explanation. "The human situation remains unresolved," Vilox began, choosing his words carefully. "Their defense mechanism neutralizes our technological advantage within their solar system. Our science division has developed partial countermeasures, but implementation across the fleet will require time." "Time is a luxury we cannot afford," interjected Sovereign Matriarch Kivlera, her insectoid mandibles clicking in agitation. "Reports indicate rebellion has broken out in 3 peripheral systems. Word of the Council's failure at Earth spreads." Another counselor leaned forward, gelatinous form rippling with bioluminescent patterns of distress. "For 10,000 cycles, Council authority has been absolute. The longer these humans remain defiant, the more our dominion weakens." Vilox acknowledged the truth in their words. "I have authorized deployment of the 3rd Armada under High Commander Zeth. With the new quantum stabilizers, our technology should remain operational despite human countermeasures. Earth will be pacified within 30 cycles." What Vilox didn't share was his private concern. Something about these humans troubled him deeply. Their resilience, their adaptability, their uncanny ability to find weaknesses where none should exist. It reminded him of ancient warnings about species with dangerous potential, species to be contained rather than conquered. Meanwhile, 40 light-years from Earth, something unprecedented was occurring. A modified Council vessel, captained by humans, emerged from hyperspace near the Proxima Centauri system. This star system, home to the avian Telleri species, had been under Council control for 3 centuries. On the bridge of the renamed Defiance, Commander Sofia Rodriguez checked final approach vectors. "Status report," she ordered, her voice calm despite the historic nature of their mission. "All systems functioning within parameters," replied her executive officer. "Whisper field generators are stable. Council patrol vessels have not detected our presence." Rodriguez nodded. "Begin broadcast on all Telleri frequencies." Throughout the Telleri settlements, communication devices suddenly activated, bypassing Council control protocols. The message, transmitted in carefully researched Telleri language patterns, was simple. "We are humans from Earth. We have defeated the Galactic Council forces in our system. We come to offer alliance, not conquest. If you seek freedom, signal us." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Across Proxima Centauri, Telleri resistance cells that had operated in shadow for generations suddenly emerged. Council administrative centers were overwhelmed, their technology failing as human whisper field generators extended their influence. The Defiance landed at the ancient Telleri capital, where Rodriguez met with Soraval, leader of the largest resistance faction. The avian being, with iridescent plumage and sharp, intelligent eyes, studied the human delegation carefully. "For 300 cycles, we have endured Council rule," Soraval said, her translator converting the complex harmonic speech to English. "We have watched our culture diminish, our young taken for service, our resources stripped. Why should we trust you?" Another spacefaring species. Rodriguez removed her protective helmet, a gesture of vulnerability that wasn't lost on the Telleri. "Because we come as equals seeking allies, not subjects. We've brought technology to defend against Council forces, knowledge to help you rebuild, and an offer. Join us not in a new empire, but in a mutual defense pact." "And if we refuse?" Soraval asked. "Then we leave you with the means to defend yourselves and continue our mission elsewhere," Rodriguez replied without hesitation. "Your freedom is yours to determine." This approach, so different from the Council's millennia of conquest, resonated deeply with the Telleri. Within days, an alliance was formed. Human technicians worked alongside Telleri engineers to install whisper field generators throughout their system, while Telleri knowledge of Council protocols and weaknesses was shared with the humans. Similar missions were launched to other subjugated worlds. The Krell, silicon-based beings with unparalleled mining capabilities. The Vorka, a species of brilliant mathematicians forced to serve as Council navigators. The Delvians, whose biotechnology had been exploited for centuries. One by one, they joined what became known as the Liberation Alliance. Back at Earth, the Council's Third Armada arrived with overwhelming force. 300 warships equipped with new quantum stabilizers designed to counteract the whisper effect. High Commander Zeth had studied the previous failure extensively and developed a strategy that would not rely solely on technological superiority. "Deploy in dispersed formation," he ordered. "Maintain minimum 30,000 kilometer spacing between vessels. Activate quantum stabilizers only when preparing to fire." The massive fleet spread throughout the solar system, positioning ships near each major human settlement: Earth, Mars, the Jovian and Saturnian colonies. This time, there would be no concentration of forces vulnerable to a single countermeasure. General Chen observed the Council deployment from her command center with growing concern. "They've adapted," she noted. "The dispersed formation neutralizes much of Whisper's effectiveness." Dr. Ashford nodded grimly. "Their quantum stabilizers are crude but functional. We anticipated this, but hoped for more time." "How long until our expeditionary forces return?" Chen asked. "Unknown," her intelligence officer replied. "We've lost contact with the Defiance and other vessels once they left our system. We must assume they're either successful or destroyed." Chen made her decision. "Activate Whisper Protocol Omega. All power resources diverted to maximum field generation. And prepare the solar lance." Across Earth and its colonies, massive power plants channeled energy into expanded whisper fields. The effect was more brutal than precise, not just disrupting Council technology, but creating zones of quantum instability that threatened any advanced systems. Human settlements switched to hardened primitive technology. Combustion engines, chemical rockets, analog communications. From the Council flagship, Zeth observed the energy readings with satisfaction. "They grow desperate," he told his officers. "Begin the attack sequence. Target their power generation facilities first." Council warships moved into firing position, activating quantum stabilizers. For a moment, it seemed their adaptations had worked. Weapons systems remained online despite the intensified whisper fields. Particle beams lanced toward Earth's surface. Then the unexpected happened. A massive surge of energy erupted from behind Earth's moon, the solar lance, a crude but effective weapon created by focusing the sun's energy through massive reflector arrays. The concentrated solar beam struck the lead Council vessels before they could reposition their shields, vaporizing 3 capital ships instantly. "Evasive maneuvers," Zeth commanded, but the coordinated human attack had only begun. From concealed positions throughout the asteroid belt, modified mass drivers launched chunks of metal at significant fractions of light speed. These relativistic kinetic weapons required no advanced technology to function, yet their impact energy rivaled tactical nuclear weapons. The Council fleet, spread thin to counter the whisper effect, could not provide mutual defense. Ship after ship was destroyed or disabled by the primitive but devastatingly effective human weapons. As the battle reached its climax, sensors detected new hyperspace signatures approaching the solar system. Zeth initially assumed Council reinforcements had arrived early, until the vessels emerged and opened fire on his fleet. The ships were Council designs, but moved with unpredictable patterns. Each flew the same symbol, a blue and green circle representing Earth, surrounded by diverse symbols of other species. The Liberation Alliance had arrived. Talari strike fighters, small and agile, darted between Council capital ships, targeting vulnerable junction points identified by their extensive knowledge of Council vessel design. Krell boarding parties, impervious to vacuum, attached to hull plates and cut their way into enemy vessels. Vorcha navigators, intimately familiar with Council tactical systems, predicted and countered every maneuver. Within hours, the mighty Third Armada was in retreat, leaving behind dozens of destroyed or captured vessels. Humanity and their new allies had achieved the impossible, a decisive victory against the Galactic Council's finest fleet. On the Eternal Dominion, Velox received the news of defeat with outward calm that belied his inner turmoil. 17 species, he said quietly. Reports confirm 17 formerly subjugated species fighting alongside the humans. They formed some kind of coalition, Ixera explained, each providing unique capabilities that complement the others. The humans call it the Liberation Alliance. An apt name, Velox noted. And now they approach our core systems. 3 weeks later, a combined fleet of human and allied vessels arrived at Nexus Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Council. But instead of an all-out assault, a single ship approached under diplomatic protocols. To the Council's surprise, it requested permission to address the 7 pillars. Curiosity overcame caution, and the request was granted. General Maya Chen herself, accompanied by representatives from each allied species, entered the Grand Chamber where the Council's governance had gone unchallenged for millennia. Chen stood before the assembled Council, her simple uniform a stark contrast to their ornate regalia. "I come with a proposal," she stated without preamble. "One that ends this conflict without further bloodshed. You stand before us having destroyed our fleets and incited rebellion across our domains." Sovereign Matriarch Kivlera responded. What proposal could possibly satisfy justice? Chen activated a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. The Liberation Alliance does not seek the Council's destruction, only its reformation. Our proposal is simple. All species, including yours, retain sovereignty over their homeworlds and colonies. The council transitions from an empire to a true governing body with equal representation for all. Murmurs spread through the chamber as Chen continued. Your technologies, your knowledge, your history, all valuable to the galaxy. But your dominion through force ends today. And if we refuse? Velox asked, though he already suspected the answer. Chen's expression remained neutral. Then we demonstrate that whisper technology can be calibrated to affect not just ships and weapons, but planetary infrastructure. Nexus Prime would survive, but its technology would not. The threat was clear, yet delivered without malice, simply as fact. The Council had built its power on technological superiority. Without it, they were just 17 species among hundreds. After days of tense negotiation, the Reformation Accords were signed. The Galactic Council would continue, but transformed. Each member species receiving equal voice, with position determined by contribution rather than military might. Human whisper technology would be shared with all signatories as a defensive measure against any future would-be conquerors. 1 year later, Chen stood with Velox on the observation deck of the new council headquarters, watching representatives from over 200 formerly subjugated species enter the chamber below. I still don't fully understand how you did it, Velox admitted. Your species was barely space-capable when we arrived. How did you develop whisper technology so quickly? Chen smiled slightly. We didn't develop it for space warfare at all. Quantum field manipulation was being researched for clean energy production. When your scouts appeared, we simply repurposed it. Adaptation. Velox nodded. The quality my people feared most in potential rivals. We were taught that species who adapt quickly must be controlled before they become threats. We never considered they might become our greatest teachers instead. The old council saw difference as danger, Chen replied. The new council sees it as strength. Every species brings unique perspectives, unique solutions. Below them, the new Galactic Assembly called its first session to order. Representatives from former council worlds sat alongside their once subjugated neighbors, while newly contacted species observed, considering membership in this strange new galactic community. Humanity had not just survived first contact, they had transformed it, turning potential extinction into a revolution that would ripple across the stars for millennia to come. Not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through their greatest evolutionary advantage, the ability to turn adversity into opportunity, to forge connections where others saw only competitors. The galaxy would never be the same again, and perhaps that had always been humanity's destiny among the stars.